We approached this from 3 angles: the legal risk, the decoder support out there, and the compression efficiency and the compression gain. For HEVC, I think the legal risk, I probably don't need to talk too much about this. The patented mechanism, the number of pools, the confusion it's bringing to the market is beyond the OTT industry itself. As you can see, there are already 3 pools, and there are even people with patent which are not in any pool. Some of these pools have already defined cost. For content specifically, the MPEG-LA is free. The HEVC Advanced only recently moved for content to be free, and the Velos media are not defined yet. Other patent holders, you need to treat them case by case, and that's really not a comfortable position. Although for content, we seem to be going towards the free content, still on the device industry. The device is where people will watch us. So if people on the device side won't have HEVC supported, there is no point us streaming that for them. And to be honest, although it is very expensive, the highest risk is that it is unknown. So that's what gives lots of uncertainty to the industry not to deploy HEVC to a big extent nowadays. VP9 is not risk-free. VP9, although it says it's royalty-free, there is no charge, there is always a possibility for anyone to come and challenge Google for that, although Google is is using it on a massive scale. And there are talks about Google already have signed a deal with MPEG-LA to cover the 2 generations, which are VP8 and VP9, but there is still a little risk. Now, from decoder support, I'm dividing this into 3 areas: the browser support, the hardware support, and the general devices support. So from a browser support, as you can see here, the 5 left columns are for desktop and laptop browsers, and the rest is mobile devices. You can see the top row. H.264 is pretty much deployed everywhere. That's a universal encoder so far, and probably the last universal encoder. HEVC is not supported on Firefox and Edge, and VP9 is supported on those 2 platforms. And Firefox and Chrome. And Chrome is probably the top browser used by most platforms. So there is a little advantage in terms of playability for Chrome and Firefox. For mobile devices, H.264 is everywhere again. HEVC is on the iOS since 2017, and although it is required on Android devices starting from 5.0 and beyond, lots of devices who still have the hardware HEVC decoding, that hardware is not turned on, it's not OEM'd. And again, that comes back to licensing issues. VP9 obviously is not on iOS, and probably it's not going to be on iOS devices, but it is fairly mature and available on lots of devices. In general, just to show you, this graph is showing that if you look at the installation base on desktop, laptops, mobile tablets, and connected TVs, VP9 is pretty much double the penetration. This data come from 2017. We have seen some slightly increase in both sides, but also HEVC penetration started to go much better, but still gives us a good base for VP9 to start with. Where Twitch stands in all this. If we encode our streams today we only encode H.264. So if we start adding HEVC and we start adding VP9, let's see how many of our minutes will be watched using either of these standards. So for HEVC on the browsers, since we rely a lot on Chrome or Firefox, it's only 2.8% versus 50% of our content could be delivered using VP9. For mobile devices, 7% of our content could be watched using HEVC, and that's mainly the iOS devices. For VP9, all the Android devices, it could reach up to 10%. So that's also another reason why we thought VP9 is the way to go. Now, to find a good encoder that runs real-time 1080p 60, which is our highest rendition, before we do that, we did some software calculation and experiments. So what we did here is our benchmark, which is the first column, which is H.264, X264 medium preset. We encoded whatever is available on HEVC software, just to have a rough guidance, and we used X265. In order to achieve real-time encoding, we needed to run ultra-fast, and the performance was not much better than X264. VP9, the library available is libvpx libvp9, which is the Google library. In order to achieve real-time, we need to run speed 6, and that gives a worse result than H.264. So we feel VP9 could deliver something for us, but we're stuck in the sense that there is no software encoders out there. There are lots of people working on HEVC encoding, lots of companies build ASIC, FPGA solutions, some software solutions as well, but VP9 pretty much, I would say, 4 companies, as far as I know, were by then, end of 2017, doing any work related to VP9. And that's where we digged a little bit deeper and we start dealing with third parties. So we start talking to Codec, and we realized they're starting some work on developing a VP9 model for real-time implementation. We run an evaluation of that towards end of 2017, and it does deliver consistently almost 25% compression savings above 6.4. That encoder will be running on the VU9P FPGA, which is a Xilinx FPGA. Xilinx as well are working with us to deliver the scalar IP as well as helping us within the integration. All this will be running on the AWS server. So AWS, I'm sure lots of you are familiar with the F1 instance, which is an FPGA instance on the clouds, which you can go and use. That's the hardware we're going to be using to be able to deploy this solution.